Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody around the great big blue confused world. It's the Thrasher's Wheat Radio video hour and something or less. But I'm Tony, and we have with us our inevitable friend on the other side of the screen, Thrasher.
Hey, Tony, it's
Hey,
been a while.
Thrash. It's
Happy
been a
New
little
Year.
while. There's been some things going on, I think. So, folks, we've got some news, as we always have news. Thrasher's Wheat is at its heart, a news organization devoted to bringing you truth, justice, and the whatever way. But it's also limited to being supposedly about Mr. Young and those things around Mr. Young. And there's been a lot of things around Mr. Young. If the saying no publicity is bad publicity still is true, then there was no bad publicity for Mr. Young in the last week in those regards. Thrasher, I invite you to come on over to this side of the microphone now and give us your top to bottom run, or the bottom to the top run of where we've been and kind of maybe where we've ended up now after this week of Neil and the spots.
Yeah, sure, Tony. Like you were saying, Neil Young has been in the headlines, not just the music headlines, but apparently this story has gone, global, international, and has reached the more of the mainstream audiences. And you know, as we get into this for a moment here, Tony, I will just say that this is probably the most complex Neil Young subject that has come up since we've been covering this in detail for the past 25 plus years at Thrasher's Wheat. What you have is a story that intersects with music, it intersects with business, it intersects with technology, it intersects with freedom and rights, it intersects with medicine, science, it intersects with this whole information, disinformation topic, as well as others. So it has a lot of threads, and it's very hard to simply summarize. But and it's an ongoing and developing story as well. And I guess for folks that just may not be as tuned in of the details, the short story, if there is a way to make this short, is that Neil Young pulled his catalog from Spotify because of a program that is a podcast that is run by a fellow by the name of Joe Rogan. And he's had some folks on about the vaccine and pandemic and COVID. And there have been comments by various guests that apparently has caused a lot of heartburn and anxiety around the world. And so this was Neil Young's way to say he objected. So from there, Tony, there are a lot of different places we could go with this story. We do have it on Thresh. We've been covering it, but Joni Mitchell, came in solidarity with Neil and pulled her music from Spotify as well. Since then, Crosby, Stills, and Nash have reunited with Neil Young, at least on the position of pulling their music from Spotify or agreeing to. Not all artists actually have the ability to pull their music from Spotify because they no longer control the rights to it. I believe David Crosby said something to that effect. But, kind of going with the Joni Mitchell angle on this for just a moment, that Joni Mitchell and Neil Young do share their Canadian background, the singer-songwriters coming out of the 60s, going to California, making it big. So everybody knows those parts of the story. But what folks may not know is that Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, both as children growing up in Canada, did get hit with polio. There is research and information out there about that. We were just looking at some of this right before the program here, recording this, and we'll direct folks over to an article, the definitive article that was written in Broken Arrow magazine that went over this subject. It's an article by Chris Ruddy here from Broken Arrow. And he published this 1951 Ontario polio outbreak, I'll say investigation or research. And it's quite detailed as we were looking at this, Tony. So I encourage everybody to kind of go in there and look at that if you really are interested in this whole subject of polio and vaccines and so on, at least as it pertains to Neil Young. So I think, Tony, we'll just sort of maybe try and stop here on this. I'm sure a lot of folks have read and heard a lot about this. You can certainly, find information on Thrasher Suite and elsewhere. But I think everybody has their sort of opinions about, where Neil and Joni and other folks landed on this whole subject of Spotify and Joe Rogan and disinformation. It's a subject that we could spend many a program kind of getting into, but I think we'll have to probably move on today.
I think moving on is a good idea. I don't think we have a song called "Moving On" in the catalog, but somebody must have done it. But yeah, you got all those things, and my little piece of it is often very conflicted. It's sort of the singer or the song, and there are many great songs out there that the singer will tell you is based on nothing more than imagination. Hey, I didn't really, like Springsteen is great in Springsteen Live, talking about how he's written all these songs about, working the 12-hour days in the factory, and he's never worked a day in his life. He's never been in a factory. He's never done physical manual labor. He just made it all up. It doesn't make it any less real. And I think when individuals are subject to scrutiny, people like Neil and people like many other essential artists, iconic artists, it's a little bit hard to understand. The individual does something, the song catalog is this other thing. It's like, I don't know, we're not part of it. It's not our life. So the part that we get to intersect is this great thing called music. And so how about we talk about this great thing called music?
Yes, Tony, the music. It is about the music. So let's talk about the music. This week we had a major anniversary, a 50th anniversary.
That actually happened 50 years ago.
That's my understanding.
Because we've had 3 50-year anniversaries of things that got delayed in 2020, delayed in 2021, but this is something that truly has an anniversary from the 1st of February in 1972.
Yep, we're in 2022, 1972, on February 1st, 1972, 50 years ago. The album Harvest was released.
Of course.
The album Harvest was released 50 years ago. So this is Neil Young's best-selling album, certainly his #1 album. Has the single Heart of Gold, which went to #1 on the radio. And so very fond memories for many Neil Young fans, although 50 years later, everybody's heard all the songs a lot. So we'll just take a few moments here to honor the anniversary and maybe let folks hear some stuff they maybe have never heard or knew about Harvest here, Tony.
I think that's a fine idea.
Yeah. So we're looking here at Thrasher's Wheat, a post that we put up this week, and we have an article here by Harvey Kubernick, who we've interviewed before here for Thrasher's Wheat Radio, and who's written a number of articles for Thrasher's Wheat, or we've been able to be authorized to republish them here. So thank you, Harvey. So he has a very extensive, detailed look back at this album, and for those folks out there who know everything about Neil Young and everything about Harvest and so on, you still might learn a few things. One thing you may not know is that there actually is some sort of an official 50th anniversary plan for Harvest that's going to be sometime later this year. We think it's going to be like a special, a deluxe edition release of Harvest, but no details have been released yet. But we are at the 50-year anniversary point, so we might see a nice box set, something like that, coming up.
Great. Okay.
So, besides, I guess all of the known kind of facts around Harvest, a lot of interesting things on Harvest. But if we kind of go over to Neil Young's website, and again, he's not really doing anything in particular for Harvest just yet. But again, as we mentioned, February 1st, 1972 came out. And then, of course, had that single Heart of Gold that we mentioned. And, of course, Tony, a big date comes up in the middle of February every year that everybody likes to play Heart of Gold for.
Yeah, I guess it could work. Yeah. That February arrow slinger that gives us Valentine's Day, huh?
Yes, the Cupids and Valentines.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll play that on here today, but there's a lot of interesting things on here. We'll navigate through a couple things, let folks take a look and listen at some things. But I guess before we do that just yet, I always like to point out to folks in discussion of like, oh, have you ever looked at the album credits on Harvest and Heart of Gold?
Yeah, right.
People go like, oh yeah, well, not really. But this is early James Taylor. This is early Linda Ronstadt. I mean, that's just how things were going back then. People were just playing on everybody's albums, kind of coming and going, and it's just a very amazing time, back in that era.
Definitely. Very, very much so.
And another thing on the album that was quite radical was that Neil hired the London Symphony Orchestra to perform on one of the songs on the album. He traveled to London to record, essentially a single song with the London Symphony Orchestra. Again, that's not how things work these days. The album was primarily recorded in Nashville, the bulk of it, but that one song was recorded in London, and it has I'm sorry, what you were going to
I
ask
know it's
something
going to
there?
be so at the suggestion or at least certainly direction of Jack Nietzsche.
Yeah, good point there. Because Jack Nietzsche, I think had a lot of maybe classical music training, or had a very broad, deep, knowledge of instrumentation and music and arrangements and conducting and those sorts of things, which I guess is why Neil brought him over. So I might suggest, Tony, we just open up the song card, the file card here for Man Needs Made, and then take a look at what they've got here on video.
I think so.
So yeah, there's a couple videos on here. One is this backstage at Barking Town Hall where they did the recording with the London Symphony Orchestra, which shows Neil in backstage. Nothing really that earth-shattering about it, but other than you see the Jack Nietzsche and Elliot Roberts and some of the other players getting ready to go do the recording session, which is what we want to show next, which is Neil recording A Man Needs a Maid with the full London Symphony Orchestra. So I'm just going to pull the audio down, because what you're seeing here is Jack Nietzsche is there in the turtleneck sweater. This is Elliot Roberts. Probably a little bit hard to see here. Let me blow it up a little bit. There's Neil over there. You know, and you always want to be drinking beer before you record with an orchestra. And here they are. They're getting ready to go out. I'll fast forward through a couple of things here and try and give folks maybe a sense of the orchestra and Neil doing some conducting with the orchestra, and trying to get the arrangements. And there's Jack Nietzsche sort of going through some of the, I guess, the preliminaries here. And here have Jack there with his beer at the console, and Neil coming in. And here we got some of the conducting that's about to begin here. So okay. I will go ahead and raise the audio here, Tony, and we'll see how this all hopefully works.
My life is changing in so many ways. I don't know who to trust anymore. There's a shadow running through my days, like a beggar going from door to door. I was thinking that maybe I'd get a maid, find a place nearby for her to stay, just someone to keep my house clean, fix my meals and go away. A maid. A man needs a maid. A maid. It's hard to make that change when life and love turn strange and cold.
All right, nice looking piece of video there, and especially the opportunity to see who's playing so magnificently in the background. It wasn't a mellotron, folks. It was the real deal, an orchestra.
Yeah, some historic footage there. Glad they shot it and saved it.
Yeah.
So it's up on the archives. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely. And so we're kind of moving on down to the end of our time here together. But we were talking about another song on this classic 50-year-old album.
Yeah, Tony, we've got a lot to choose from. I know we sort of had we could, play Heart of Gold, and, everybody could hear that and play it for Valentine's Day. I'm just kind of looking through the folders there. The Heart of Gold song actually has, it's actually an interview. It's not the song, but if you haven't seen the interview on his ranch, it's interesting. It's where you get to see the old man himself that the song was named after. So that's always interesting. But the other sort of nominee here just because this has also some good video of it, and some timely video of it is Are You Ready for the Country, Tony?
Nice.
So you are ready for the country? Is that?
I'm pretty ready for the country, I'd say. A warmer country than the one I have with 2 feet of snow outside, but I am. And remember not to, to not forget to celebrate the legendary bands that came together for this thing that became known as the Stray Gators, band that really just quintessentially brilliant studio musicians all coming together on this great album. So hats off to those folks 50 years later.
Yeah, Tony, you're absolutely right. The Stray Gators, the musicians are listed here on the card. It's Ben Keith and Jack Nietzsche, and Tim Drummond on drums, Neil Young. So a lot of folks that Neil worked with for a long time. Yep,
definitely.
Okay. All right.
Let's roll the video.
We're going to roll the video, and probably the last thing that we'll say here for today is that the title of this is In the Barn. So as we were sort of observing, a lot of symmetry here. Neil was in the barn, and 50 years ago for recording Harvest, his most famous album, and he is back in the barn today, not with the Stray Gators, but his other friend's Crazy Horse. So things change, but stay the same.
All right, tie up those horses and let's roll the video.
Okay, here we go.